Sounds good.
There we go, recording. All right, let me know when you have that, Kate. You good? Awesome.
Yeah, got it.
Welcome, everybody. All right, we're right at 1, so we're going to get started. My name is Larry Law. I'm the Executive Director of the Great Lakes Independent Booksellers Association, and I'm one of the co-hosts of Heartland Summer. I am joined today by our other co-hosts, Carrie Obrey, the Executive Director of Midwest Independent Bookseller Association, and Kate Scott, the Program Manager for Midwest Independent Bookseller Association. Just some housekeeping up top. If you are just joining, please mute yourself. And if you don't mind, please change your name. You can edit it with the little ellipses if you hover over your screen, upper right. Change it to your name if you want to add your pronouns and your bookstore or publisher. That would be great for questions that come up later. I'd like to remind everybody of our programming we have coming up for the remainder of the week. This session and the rest of the week will be recorded and shared this Friday. Tomorrow we have our 5th Rep Pick session. We will be joined by Norton Consortium, Blackstone Publishing, Scholastic, Cottage Door Press, and Boutique of Quality Books Publishing Company. That is tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then Thursday evening, join us at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for an evening with picture books. We will be joined by Kenneth Kragle, Kao Kalia Yang, Heather Dean Brewer, Li Yuen Pham, 30 Umriger, Anna Katz, Amy Timberlake, and John Klassen. Did I hit everybody, Carrie? Sweet. And now on to today's session. So today's session is the Art of Sidelines. It's such a big topic. We invited a bunch of educators from all aspects to join us to try and cover as much as we could. We are joined by Cynthia Compton from 4Kids Books and Toys in Zionsville, Indiana. Meghara, did I say that right after you just told us how?
It's Meghara.
Meghara, so sorry about that.
That's all right.
Meghara Eichhorn-Hicks from Left Bank Books in St. Louis, Missouri. Tim Smith and Beth Boynik from Schuler Books and Music in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Jessica Peterson White from Content Bookstore in Northfield, Minnesota. John Mesjak, Emily Oran Johnson, and Sandra Law from Abraham Associates. Mark Fleeman from Fujii Associates. Nancy Rohlen from Ingram. And Geetha Nathan from the American Booksellers Association. The format for today will be pretty free-flowing. We have a bunch of questions and topics we'll have everybody jump in with. If you do have a question, please throw it into the chat. We'll be watching the chat for questions. As well, feel free if you want to just jump in and ask a question, that's fine as well. I'm going to kick it off with asking our bookstores a few questions. So just very quickly, if you could go through this as quick as possible. Of our participating bookstores, if you could just quickly talk about what percentage of your bookstore is Sidelines, if that's a conscious decision, or if you try to hit a certain percentage, and quickly why, just to give us a baseline so we know where everybody's starting. Let's start with Cynthia.
Hi, everybody. So you can tell from my store name, which is 4Kids Books and Toys, we are half and half. We are half a children's bookstore, half a toy store. We carry items for babies through teens and a small adult reading section. We're 17 and a half years old now, and we have had this mix from the very beginning. Every year at the end of the year, we kind of balance it out, and one year books might be 51% and toys might be 49%, or most years it's right at 50-50. And I would expect that will happen again this year, even in the strange times. Whoops, do I get to take a shot? I just used strange times. Isn't that part of the pandemic? But that's pretty much all about us. And I'm sitting actually in our second room, which is what we used to use for story times and daily preschool events, which we can't do anymore. So now that has blown out and become more store.
Thank you, Cynthia. Meghara from Left Bank.
We are at Left Bank in St. Louis. We are primarily a bookstore. So our Sidelines budget is less, unfortunately. I wish it was 50-50. But we, in the before times, we tended to hover around 8, 9, 10% sidelines. It's less than that right now, just because who knows what's happening anywhere ever. So.
Great, thank you. Tim and Beth from Schuler.
Yeah, so we are a large format bookstore. I would say generally our sidelines are about 20 or 25% of our floor plan and sales. That's something that changes, like some of the others have said, over time. It at one time was quite a bit smaller, but we used to have a very large music section, and as that shrank, we had to make that up somewhere else, so we chose sidelines.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to jump into our next question. What should booksellers think about in terms of profitability and inventory management that are different for sidelines than for books? Jessica, I'm going to throw that to you. Do you want to, sorry, I think I skipped you. If you want to talk briefly about your, what percentage of your store is sidelines, and if you want to jump into the next topic.
Sure. So we have like we're a general interest bookstore, but we have a dedicated space for children's books and toys that we opened about a year ago. So our sidelines includes a lot of toys, and that's growing, but right now it's about 15% of inventory in dollars and about 25% of sales in dollars. I really wanted to talk about profitability with this because I think that's, I think most booksellers know that it's a good idea to carry sidelines for profitability, and one of the reasons is because the margins are often better than they are in books. But I think very few retailers in general, and even fewer booksellers, are as aggressive as they can be about margins and pricing. And most of us, I think, have learned kind of somewhere along the way that we should do keystone pricing, meaning we should like take the price of whatever we bought at wholesale and double it and call that the selling price. And I think one of the really big reasons to do sidelines and toys and things that don't have a price printed on the package like books do is because we have more flexibility there. And I would really strongly encourage you, as you if you're exploring new sidelines and things that are not books to bring into your shop, to strike a balance. Obviously there are a lot of really good reasons to buy a lot of wonderful sidelines from publishers that do have a pretty set price. Oftentimes those are returnable. That's a huge advantage. But if you look a little farther afield, I really encourage you to try to eliminate keystone pricing from your brain and take the piece out of the box, look at it, and ask yourself what you would expect to pay for it. And not what would you expect to pay for it at Walmart, but what you would expect to pay for it in a boutique, which is what you have. I think that even if you are only making a shift of a couple or 3 or 4 percentage points at that point, and sometimes you can make a much bigger shift than that, you're going to find that that makes a huge difference in your bottom line. And if you crunch out those numbers over the course of a year, even if you don't have a huge sales total in sidelines, those points really add up. So I really encourage people to think about that. And I also think booksellers in particular should think about profitability and should think about turns, really. And turns, for anyone who doesn't know, are how many times in the course of a year or whatever time period you're selling through the inventory you have in a given category. So if you have $500 at retail in a certain category and you're selling $1,000 a year in that category, that's 2 turns per year. And I think you should be aiming for like 3 or 4 turns in most sidelines categories or better. Sometimes you can do a lot better than that. And so think about how you're marking things down so that they stay fresh. I think really as booksellers, I know I struggle with keeping things fresh and returning things when I should and staying on top of that, because it overall is a lot easier to let books kind of sit around than it is to let sidelines sit around. And but what makes sidelines sell is having them be really fresh all the time. And if you have a little something new every time your customers come in the store, they're going to come back more often, and they're going to buy things that they didn't plan on buying, which is the whole point of carrying things that are not books. So I feel like I kind of went on longer than I planned to about that. I have a lot to say about turns and margins and things like that. So, but I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because I know there's a lot of other stuff to talk about.
That was great. Does anybody else want to jump in on that topic before we change gears? The question was, what should booksellers think about in terms of profitability and inventory management that are different for Sidelines than for books?
I would just add, I couldn't agree more with what Jessica said about eliminating keystone pricing. And one thing I would encourage is overlooking small items. Particularly, we do very well with counter cards, individual greeting cards. And that's because we can, they're visible, they're affordable, they're near the register, and we can replace them with something new and fresh almost constantly. And again, with the pricing on cards, it's a little bit flexible. We can build in the cost of shipping into the pricing of the card, things along those lines. And it really does add up over the course of a quarter or a year. It gets to be quite profitable. So things like that. And then one thing I learned from Danny Kane when I was at the Raven Bookstore is that you can't really have enough branded store merch because you really are able to control those prices and people love them. So that's what I would add.
Great. All right, that kind of nicely segues into our next topic. So let's go through our bookstores first, and then maybe if the reps would like to join in on this one as well, that'd be great. So pre-pandemic and now in the midst of pandemic, could you briefly talk about what your best-selling Sidelines have been? What were they pre-pandemic, and what are they looking like right now? So let's start with Cynthia again.
When pandemic hit here, mid-March, we were coming up on the Easter season. And so that normally is our second Christmas in a children's store. Easter drives a tremendous amount of sales, followed then by Halloween. So we were coming into literally one of our busiest times in the store, both in gift and in book. We pushed through and had a really, really solid Easter. We were able to hit those numbers. What we did, however, was immediately start delivering. So I literally became the bunny. And the reason that we were able to do it is because it all went in the back of my husband's van and it was driven all over creation. As it became clear that schools were going to be closed for an extended period of time, our highest categories, because the weather was still lousy here in Indiana, our highest categories were, right after puzzles, were games and arts and crafts. Arts and crafts has had a soft couple of years industry-wide, so it's been interesting to see that regeneration of sales in that category, and that clearly is played out for us. That is still one of our top 3 categories in the store, even though we can be outside now. We're now in a whole different season. The weather is warm. Our kids have gone back to school here in Indiana. So we are continuing to sell outside toys, but anything that can be worked with at home for kids that are doing a hybrid learning is really, really strong. And also anything preschool is extremely strong right now. Parents are having to entertain very young preschoolers while their older children might be at the kitchen table doing their e-learning or whatever else. So almost anything in the 3 and under category right now is golden for us. And I'm ordering appropriately because this is going to continue through the fall semester.
Great, thank you, Cynthia. Beth and Tim.
Before pandemic, some of our biggest categories was boutique. So socks, bath and body products, that kind of thing, besides puzzles. Puzzles have been great, always. My biggest thing is think of outside the box. We sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of socks, which you wouldn't think a bookstore would normally do. So pre-pandemic was that. I agree with Cynthia. It's been things to do at home with the kids, school workbooks, supplies, Melissa and Doug kits, a lot of that stuff going on. We're starting to see, though, an uptick of just our everyday general gifts are picking up now. So people are coming in the store and getting those basic gifts again.
Jessica, what about you?
So before the pandemic, I would say our best categories were cards, stuffed animals, impulse toys, like, you know, anything that's like, sorry, I'm handing off the baby here. Impulse toys, like anything, you know, all the little stuff you put around the counter, fidgets, candy, little, you know, little toys that kids can buy with their pocket money, and then journals, and then that kind of boutique-y category is pretty significant for us too, like candles and mugs and stuff like that. But that is still we turn a lot, but it's a very small proportion of our inventory because it's highly seasonal and it doesn't last. Like, you can't keep ordering the same stuff in those categories. I would say during the pandemic, obviously puzzles. We've also done a lot with games. Adult board games have been really strong. And I don't mean like capital A adult board games. I mean like Settlers of Catan. There's a cooperative board game called Pandemic that we've sold a ton of, where you actually do get to save the world from the pandemic. And then I think a lot of the other toy categories that were mentioned have been strong too. And I would agree with everything that was said about how people are trying to keep their kids busy and entertained at home. I also think on the adult side, just any little thing that like sparks a little bit of joy, if you are able to be open and have customers in the store, things that make people laugh, some gentle political humor is going over really well for us. You know, just things that feel like a little affordable treat to people are doing well.
Great. And Meg, and then I'd like to circle back to Cynthia. She had something she'd like to show.
Similarly, you know, ahead of the pandemic, puzzles, games, enamel pins, cards, journals, things along those lines, kind of what you would expect. During pandemic, games and puzzles are still really popular, obviously. Particularly, we've done really well with like small trivia games that families can play together, things that they can pull out at the dinner table, kind of try to find something new to talk about when they're all stuck together in a house. Those have done well. And then also anything that is socially engaged or social justice oriented, anything that is broadly sort of political along those lines. A full 20% of our sidelines right now is our Black Lives Matter signs that we don't actually make a profit on. But they do keep people ordering from the store, and we deliver them all around town, and somebody might throw in a book or two at the same time. So that has made up a large portion, along with sort of funny novelty tote bags that say, like, I think it's Out of Print that has the ones that say someone literate 2020. Those kinds of jokes are really going over well with people right now. I think everybody needs a little levity. And this is a way to sort of channel frustration and find something to laugh at. So, so things like that have been doing very well for us too.
Great, thank you. Cynthia, I'm glad you said something. I'm gonna throw back to you if you'd like to show.
Yeah,
Cynthia is amazing at these, what she's about to show you.
So this has been the biggest thing that's happened for our sales in the last 2 weeks. And I wanted to clue everybody in case your schools haven't gone back in session where you are. But right before school started, a couple of teachers sent home letters to parents saying, hey guys, there's going to be inclement weather and we're going to have indoor recess some days. Well, normally when there's indoor recess at a school, the kids go to the gym and play dodgeball, or the teacher gets out a few board games and they can play on the floor. They can't do that this year because they have to maintain their social distancing in the classroom and stay at their desk. So the teacher is sending home gallon Ziploc bags with each kid, and the parents are supposed to fill that with little items to keep their child entertained for indoor recess. And the teacher keeps these in a Rubbermaid tote or something at school where they're all sealed up, and then hands them out when they have an indoor recess. So suddenly we had a ginormous run on parents walking in the door with a Ziploc bag saying, I have to fill this, my kid is 8. Like, what do you have? So if your kids haven't started school yet, and you can actually publicize this to your local schools and say, hey, have you thought about indoor recess yet? Here's some coupons for those bags, or we have the bags and we can check to make sure everything fits. So the average bag price, I mean, the average ring up in one of these is $40. That's what a parent spends per child just to get stuff to go in that bag. And then, of course, we sell them a couple of extra things because we figure a couple of weeks down the road, if we've had a lot of rain, they're going to need to refresh those bags, right? So if you haven't gotten indoor recess bags started at your store, this is an example of one, it's coming. And get yourself a thing of gallon bags and start sticking stuff inside to see how many things you can fit and what you have, and order from your impulse vendors accordingly, because suddenly we're going through Rubik's Cubes like nobody's business.
Yeah, I would also say we don't have anything structured like that going on in our community, but we have been selling just tons of fidgets for kids who are spending a lot of time on their screens and are fidgety. And then also like indoor active toys, I think are important now, have been important through the summer, and are going to continue to be really important. If you look at Fat Brain Toys, they have quite a few things that are really great for keeping kids moving indoors. And there are, of course, lots of other sources too. We also, on that note, I think the back to school note, I think I would also encourage people to not be shy about looking at really pandemic related things. We've done pretty well with kids masks, and as well as adult masks, and blue light blocking glasses for children, which are available on Fair.
Great. I have a couple questions for our reps in the chat really quick, but Cynthia, really quickly, you've also done packages like this for holidays, correct? You've had pretty good success with that.
We have. So we started with Easter baskets, but then as the summer went on and kids were no longer able to have birthday parties, their friends still wanted to be able to give their best buddy a birthday present. So we started doing porch deliveries for birthdays. So I just went on Nashville Wraps and a couple other gift vendors and bought a ton of these little boxes. And then we just put books and whatever the birthday gift is inside, wrap it up with cellophane and deliver it. Or the parent can drop by and do the curbside pickup, and they can drop it off on the curbside when they're doing their drive-by deliveries. Do you guys have lots of those drive-by birthday parties happening where people yell out of their car and stuff? So these have been immensely popular, and we do a couple of different sizes and all different kinds. We also do birthday boxes this way, but it's just a great way to turn. Here, we're going to have a porch birthday, and suddenly we have a sale.
That's great. That's great. All right, I'm going to throw this over to our reps. So, similar question for you. Pre and during pandemic, what are some of your best-selling sidelines? And is there anything you see coming down that bookstores should be aware of? Any specific sidelines you think would do well right now? Let's start with John, Emily, and Sandra.
Okay. I'll start by just talking about a lot of stores and folks on the call know Abraham Associates, various sideline vendors. You know, we've got Moleskine and we have the Gallison puzzles through Chronicle. We've had the Ideal Bookshelf pins. We've had the Descent pins recently added, and they were, honestly, that's the vendor I've been trying to push a little bit more recently. Descent pins has started really going into some new categories beyond their Ruth Bader Ginsburg and their science and vaccination pins. They're leaning hard into voting. They're leaning hard into supporting the Postal Service. I'm going to throw a link into the chat for their current website features on. They're doing yard signs to thank essential workers, and they're doing yard signs to talk about that I'm going to vote, and that it says, the yard sign says I
vote by mail, and then I voted by mail.
Yeah, it comes with an extra D, so you can say when you did vote by mail, you can put the D out on it. What else, Emily and Sandra?
I would say, yeah, I would just reiterate that, just based on the fact that a couple of our other buyers have already mentioned the fact that the gently political stuff is working fairly well, and Descent Pins has really sort of pivoted from their sole focus on the Ruth Bader Ginsburg merch to a lot of much more timely stuff, and they've really become super flexible as far as their order qualifications. So I think that's one of the areas where we've seen a few more stores bringing those in. But yeah, really all summer long it was puzzles.
Great. Let's go to Mark Fleeman from Fujii. Oh, I think you're muted, Mark.
Yeah, I should know this. You know, some of our lines, Unemployed Philosophers Guild, we had great success with Little Thinkers, with the mugs, lithographs. We've had success with. Here's a lithograph. And now they're going to have the state constitutions. So the 17 states we cover in the Midwest and Southwest, they're going to have those constitutions. Workman has been pretty amazing with the BrainQuest decks. Now they have a lot of puzzles from almost all their lines that they distribute, from Familius to Workman to Artisan, Story, Timber. They all have puzzles. Merry Makers was a very successful line for our group. And Gibb Smith, their tote bags, the socks, the note cards. Since the pandemic, it's kind of come back to Workman with the BrainQuest workbooks, the Star Wars workbooks, and the puzzles. UPG, we're seeing upticks in the zipper bags and in the planners. Things that I see, you know, out when I've actually been into about 25 bookstores since June. So couple of things I've noticed in one of my stores in South Central Indiana is quality paper construction cards. And she had a huge display in the front of her store. So, you know, that's something you might be aware of. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Nancy, how about from Ingram?
Yeah, so, you know, no surprise, at Ingram, puzzles were huge for us during the pandemic. And, you know, we tried to hold as many of those as possible for indie booksellers through, we started putting them in the Indie Vault. So that's something that you might want to keep checking. There's a couple in there now. Since the pandemic and looking forward, something, you know, coming up this Saturday is Independent Bookstore Day, and we've shipped out all of the orders for the you know, special merchandise for that day. But if you need any reinforcements, or if you didn't place an order initially, we do have some leftover inventory. So just reach out to me, and I'd be happy to share with you what we have left over. And it would probably be too close to get it to you this week, but we could get it to you early next week. And then, you know, just because it's 2020, we're carrying face masks. So we have the out of print ones. And I think we're out of stock right now. So back order those if you need them. And we're also, this is so weird. We're carrying hand sanitizer. So if you need hand sanitizer, but also homeschooling products are doing really well. And also board games, you know, some of the classics like from Hasbro. So those have been pretty popular for us.
Thank you, Nancy. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about marketing. So with a lot of our stores are still doing shortened hours, how is everybody coping with selling Sidelines? What are your current best practices for selling them? Are you newsletter, website, social media? Do you have them on your website? What is working for you right now? I'm going to let's start with some bookstores, and then I'll see if we can get some best practices that any of our reps have seen. Cynthia, how about you? How are you selling your Sidelines now?
Social media all day long. Literally, we're putting up 12 product posts a day. And we have just started using a program called Comments Sold that you guys might be familiar with, where customers can purchase directly off of Facebook as they see something. It has really been a social media driven sales summer for us.
That's great. Can you talk a little bit more about Comments Sold?
Yeah, so Comments Sold is a subscription program whereby you can put products up on your social media posts and allocate how many of each item. So if, say I want to make 6 of them available out of my inventory, the customer then just goes on under the post and writes the item number 101 sold. And that combination takes them to the website where they enter their credit card, their payment, and an email comes to us and we fulfill. They have the same choices that they would on our website for shipping, curbside pickup, or we added delivery for local customers. So it's called Comment Sold, one word, and I'll put a link up here in the chat as well. But it's pretty seamless to catch people on the fly who maybe aren't looking at your website and shopping, but might be scrolling Facebook, for example, while they're waiting for one of their children to finish their algebra assignment.
Great, thank you, Cynthia. Kate threw that link up there in the chat.
Thank
so
you.
Comments will listen in. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Meghara, how about you?
Well, I mean, we have Sidelines up on the website, and we do have a newsletter. Say the bulk of our sales come through social media as well. There's just no other tool that reaches out to people in the same way. And what we have found is that, you know, if we post like a snarky greeting card or a funny mug or something, we will immediately begin to get comments from people like, I want that, you know? So we know now that if we're going to post it on social media, we have to have a lot of them because it's been that effective for us. And then even going so far as our owners will occasionally post something on their personal Facebook page because they like it, and their friends then start to interact with it as well. So there's a lot of opportunity to spread the message of what we have in stock via social media. I'd say that's our best.
Where are you capturing those sales then that are from your posts?
You know, sometimes it's the old-fashioned way. We get a lot of phone calls to the store. We get a lot of people just calling and asking us to set one aside. They'll give us the credit card number over the phone. And that has been working really well for us.
Great. Beth and Tim. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay. So we're featuring a lot of stuff in social media. We were doing a lot of direct selling via social media while we were shut down. But now we've gotten to the point where we have some pages on our website that are pretty easy to navigate. It's pretty easy to take the product numbers from a display that we take a picture from and make a page on our IndieCommerce site. So if you go to our social media and click on the link, it takes you right to a page that's populated with all the items. Of course, we do have the old-fashioned method that was mentioned a couple minutes ago too, where people are calling the store after they see the post or coming in. We are open to the public at this point here and picking the stuff up the way that they would normally. One of the things that we are going to do moving into the rest of this year is, like was mentioned also, strategically buy so that we can feature certain things on the website and have plenty of quantity because we're, you know, everybody saw the same thing with puzzles. If you featured it, then you instantly needed 20 of them instead of just your normal 1 or 2. And so we're going to try to be a little bit strategic about how we purchase so that we can feature certain things and have those in bulk so that we can not deplete our store stock as well.
Jessica, how about you? How are you marketing Sidelines right now?
Social media, same as everyone else, I think is really big. Instagram and Facebook. And as has been noted, I think if you're going to do that, you need to be prepared to respond to people quickly via those channels, which has been a little bit of a steep learning curve for us. Not that we don't know how to use social media, but sort of staying on top of it at the pace that customers now expect us to be able to engage that way has really required some adjustment. But it can be really effective. It was especially effective when we were closed for browsing. And I would say, I mean, I agree with everything else that's been said. I think the only other thing is to really think about bundling. If you could do that seasonally, that's great. We had a lot of success with our bespoke boredom busting bundles that we did while we were on lockdown here in Minnesota. and we have like 4 different price points for those and a little questionnaire that people can fill out, and we select things and then send them. They're full price. We get to send people stuff that we think they should have. It's a ton of fun to do. It's a little labor intensive, but it's a good way to move things that are, I mean, some people select that they just need books, but it's a great way to move Sidelines too. We also did Easter baskets, and that was a great way to move some kids stuff and really get people just a bundle of things that were gonna really spark joy for children who were under lockdown. And we plan to do the same thing for stockings and maybe some other holiday bundles that we can do, especially for kids, but we'll also do them for grown-ups. I was really, when we launched the boredom busting bundles, I was really expecting those to mostly go to children, and the vast majority of them went to adults. So that's another thing to think about. Yeah, I think those are really the big channels. And just, again, I just can't say it enough times, like keeping it fresh for people. And I think, as has been said, like making sure if you're going to feature something, you have enough stock for it. For us, we use Book Manager, and which is makes it's not hard for us to create like a browsable collection of non-book items, but we do have to sort of take that step of creating the collection. And but I've seen that as a really effective opportunity for curation, because that's really what our customers come to us for.
Thank you. We've got a bunch of questions and comments coming in through the chat, but I'd like, maybe if we could finish this question out with our reps, and then I'll ask a couple of the questions that came through chat before we continue. So similar question for our reps. Do you guys have any good examples of bookstores that seem to be marketing and selling Sidelines well online, social media, through their website? Yeah, let's start with Mark from Fujii. Any examples of bookstores you think that are doing it well right now?
Yes, Book Corner in Bloomington, Indiana, she seems to be doing it well. Carmichael's has been fantastic. I think they've been doing a great job. I think that the most important thing is that the use of that front space, especially with stores during the pandemic who were closed for indoor shopping, but had curbside, using that front window or that front space where people can see in, it's been very important. So that's what I'm seeing.
What about Nancy?
Yeah, I'd give a shout out to Schuler's just because I'm following them on social media, and I feel like I get a lot of updates from products that they're featuring. And then also I really appreciate the Raven Bookstore and their branded merchandise. I think that it's really smart, and the designs are super cute. So those are 2 that stand out to me.
Great. John, Emily, and Sandra, any examples you guys have?
I'll probably throw another vote out for Carmichael's, honestly. Just their emails and what I see on social media has been great. A number of other booksellers present are also awesome. You guys know who you are.
Yeah, I would have said content regardless of whether Jessica was on the call or not. So she's already told us her strategy. Don't need to add to that.
Oh, shucks.
And then Cynthia as well, with 4 Kids Books and Toys. She's been doing a good job with her baskets, and as far as promoting everything and showing display photos and things like that. Sorry, Vivian's being a little testy right now.
All right, I'm going to dig into a couple of the questions that came through the chat. Just so everybody knows, at like 10 to 15 to 2 o'clock, that's when we'll dig a little bit more into the website and the ABA and IndieCommerce. I know there's some stores that don't use IndieCommerce, so we kind of save that for the end for those stores if that don't see that necessary. But let's get into a couple of questions. This is from Nina Barrett at Bookends and Beginnings. She's looking for a really good wholesale source for traditional stationery items, especially a wide selection of pens, but also a variety of notebooks and papers. Ideally, would want Japanese, Italian, and German products. Any ideas?
This is something I have spent a fair amount of time hunting for. I have not found a perfect source. There is an art supply distributor out of New Orleans. I'm going to have to Google it to remember their name. They they have a pretty good selection of Japanese pens and nice Italian notebooks and things like that. Unfortunately, mostly what I found is that those things often have to be ordered. There isn't a distributor that carries a real full complement of those things. We carry Leuchtturm 1917 journals and notebooks, and those are really, really strong for us. And then we carry some less expensive pens, but we haven't tried any really high-end pens because we have anyway, that's a long story. But I do encourage you to look at Leuchtturm 1917. It's a journal line that is it's kind of a standard format, but you don't find it everywhere. So that's one option.
One of the big stationery companies that we use is Pomegranate. Has a nice high-end art quality. Another one we've done really well with is Earth, Sky, Water. It's a very cream color, does nature designs, animals and stuff. And then Exoclair does great basic stationery.
Yeah.
Peter Pauper Press, a lot of the basic publishers are also doing stationery.
I don't know if she's in the chat still, Joanna from BookBug. You carry quite a few. You have a really nice art supply section. Are you in the chat right now? Are you able to jump in? Sorry for putting you on the spot if you are not.
I'm here. Yeah. I guess I can make myself visible. Everyone's saying most of the lines that we have, and I saw somebody just put SLS and Alvin Art Supply also. With those art vendors, you do have to work with different types of minimums, but there is a lot of opportunity for margin padding in the smaller art supplies and the art quality supplies. So yeah, and Nina, I think you already carry Leuchtturm, but I reiterate like the quality of those. Right, yeah.
Great, thank you, Joanna. Cynthia had a comment in the chat, which kind of nicely segues into something else I wanted to talk about. Cynthia wrote, I would caution everyone to be very aware of supply chain issues this fall. If you are committing to a brand, think about your expected sales from now until Christmas and order early. So another question I pose to everybody, how are you planning for the fourth quarter? What do you have any issues with shipping? Does everybody, with USPS delays, are you concerned about that? Does everybody pretty much use FedEx and UPS, so that's not as much of an issue? How are you planning to adjust for the fourth quarter this year? Let's start again with Cynthia.
We are quite honestly hoarding. I am very concerned about supply chain issues. I'm already seeing toy companies with major delays on container ships getting in through customs. And expected items in the warehouse not arriving and being delayed. There are still warehouses in parts of the country that are working with very small staffs. Receiving is difficult. Normally this time of year, our store would stage our deliveries on a monthly basis. So I would have written, for most of my vendors, I would have written a September, October, November, December order. This year I am mushing those into one order or two orders. I have rented extra storage space and I have become a hoarder because I am really concerned about the availability of some of the product lines I need to carry through Christmas. Yes, Joanna, I am. So Joanna asked if we were able to take advantage or negotiate better terms in order to hoard. Obviously, freight is a huge expense in non-book. And so looking at those freight targets and getting myself to free freight was great. Many vendors are preferring to, rather than long dating programs, they're preferring to say, you know, if I pay a portion up front and then get a longer dating program until after Christmas. But yes, there is more flexibility this fall with dating, freight, and terms from non-book than there has ever been in my experience.
Yep.
What about you, Jessica? Oh, did I cut somebody off?
That's my experience as well. And I'm actually less concerned about shipping and more concerned about supply chain. So I am trying to plan as much as I can now. My goal is to have all of my fourth quarter orders in by the end of this month. And really that feels kind of late to me. And to really, to be prepared to hold stock back in our stockroom or wherever we can fit it. And I think one challenge is going to be to get it all in, but then kind of trickle it out onto the floor so things still look fresh for customers throughout the season. So we're going to be trying to do that as much as possible. And yeah, I would just really encourage people to, I mean, your vendors should be partners in this. It's a lot of risk this year. And if you want to have the products that you need in order to have a strong season, you're going to need to hoard it. But the vendors should have some skin in that game too, and be prepared to help you out with dating or freight or whatever they can do, because they're facing the same risks, but on a larger scale. So, and independent retail is a strong and helpful partner for them right now, because consumers are really interested in working with us.
I would kind of go along with that, saying that hoarding, getting stuff earlier, but also having relationships with your reps. I had numerous reps that as soon as something comes in, they send me an email. They give me what's available. I put the order in right away. I have local vendors. He's emailing me every couple of weeks. I'm like, this is what I have in stock. So I quickly put an order in. So having those rep relationships is essential right now, especially too.
Let's throw to our reps really quick. We're this is flying by. We're already at a quarter to. So any reps in the chat, have you had, what best practices have you seen for people trying to prepare for fourth quarter, if any, right now from your accounts?
Larry, I would just hop on to comment on what Beth and Jessica and Cynthia were talking about. We've been getting reports from Chronicle regularly about Gallison's in-stock puzzles, and we're trying not to spam that out too often, but we do have really current information about what's available to ship right now out of Heshet's warehouse. And we've asked them to also provide a report for us on the family and adult games as well that we'll have regularly reported on. So we'll be able to share that with everybody pretty often about what's ready to ship now out of their warehouse in stock. So that should help a little bit.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate from Ingram, we're also trying to build up our inventory for fourth quarter way early this year. Usually we try and have it done sometime in November, and now we're looking at October 1st because we're just foreseeing, you know, not only with Sidelines but also books, there could be some major issues. So, you know, stock up early, get your customers to you know, try and shop as early as possible.
How about you, Mark?
I agree with what John said. I think that puzzles, I would stock up early on puzzles, and we're getting communications from a number of our publishers that they just keep going in and out of stock. But the communication is key with our publishers, and it's, you know, we'll pass it on as quickly as we possibly can to our customers. So.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the ABA in just a second. If there's anybody from MaxBacks or Quimby's in the chat, please feel free to jump in. I'm going to put Danny on the spot really quick if he doesn't mind. Danny, do you have any best practices for making your own goods? And specifically, you do well with zines at your store, correct?
Yeah, actually, zines are wonderful. We're selling our post office zine retail for $3. We're selling it wholesale for $1. If people need that, I can post the wholesale link in the chat if people are interested. But we printed it in bulk enough this time that our unit cost is about 25 cents. So we're where Jessica was talking about getting rid of Keystone pricing. I mean, we're selling that zine at a margin that we're probably going to donate somehow a bunch of what we make off that zine to somehow help the post office. It might even be just buying stamps to give away or use somehow. So zines are great. There's a little bit of a learning curve with designing and layout, but every time we get really involved in some sort of social justice or political thing, a zine seems to be a really good fit, and people love to pick up on it. I mean, even when you buy it wholesale from us for $1, you can sell it for $3 and you're making a better margin on that. And they're a great add-on. When we sell them online, mostly people will buy a zine and then add something else to the cart just so they're not spending $3 on the website. And my best practice for store merch in general is just have a good relationship with who makes it. We've been teaming up we have a printer that we love working with that's great with us. We've worked with them enough that we kind of get the friends and family discount with them, which again helps with the margins. And that helps us. Recently, we've been teaming up with local artists, which has been really, really fun. Our last shirt, which is my favorite shirt we've ever done, was made in partnership with the local artist who we paid for the design. And it's just sold through the roof, in part because the artist is promoting the work as well. So it's kind of doubling your marketing. And Carrie, what do I pay? I see a question from Angela. I think this shirt, we paid either $200 or $250 for that design, but we've sold upwards of 500 of those shirts. It totally paid for itself. I always think design pays for itself, especially if you can kind of get a good price out of your printer, if you have a good relationship with them. I'll put my email in here. If you have any questions about making your own merch, I love talking about this stuff. I don't want to take up too much time, but if you have questions about zines or making your own merch, you can just email me at raven@ravenbookstore.com. Thanks for calling me out, Larry.
Yep, awesome. Thank you, Danny. All right. Geetha, if I'm going to turn it over to you. If we go a little bit over, I'm going to keep the chat going, but if you can't stay on, that's fine. This will be recorded for everybody that can't stay on past 2. Geetha, you have, the ABA has a bunch of updates coming for IndieCommerce in regards to non-book product. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. First thing, thank you for having me on this panel. Just being here, I think listening to everyone, I feel like the upgrades that we have been working on is in line with what I'm hearing today, all the suggestions and recommendations. And I'm just happy that our upgrades are in line with that. And the focus has always been about bringing customers into the stores, but also it is also good practice, we think, to have online presence for all your sidelines, so it can supplement your in-store sales. That is what we saw in the last few months with the pandemic, like stores were rushing to get all their sidelines posted on their websites. So most of our upgrades that we are working on is focused towards that. So if I can just quickly share my screen, can I go ahead and do that?
Yep, go right ahead.
Yeah, I just put together a few slides to make it easy for me to go through. So some of the upgrades that we are coming, the plan is to have all these upgrades done and launched by end of September. So our members will have October to start using this, get trained on this and ask us questions. And we are also planning for some webinars in October. So we will get into these, each feature in detail in those webinars. The first one is Sidelines from Ingram. So we are currently offering on IndieCommerce sites what Ingram calls the Ingram T category sidelines, which includes calendars, maps, blank books, and other sideline like items. So this is available on all IndieCommerce sites. It's just a preference, you enable it, and these are available. Like we pull all the metadata from Ingram, the images, so it's readily available. And we are trying to expand that to other sidelines. Probably in September, we'll have more of those. And the next one is about shipping sidelines. So the main issue that we've heard from stores is about media mail. When a customer puts a book and a sideline item in an order, they are not able to do media mail. So again, this is for anything that we are importing from Ingram. Ingram has a flag that says if each item is media mail eligible or not. So we are processing that information. So on your IndieCommerce site with a simple rule, you can stop customers from combining a book and a sideline and opting to do media mail. And also the non-returnable, if you are particular about following that, like if Ingram says it is non-returnable, and if you don't want your customers to return those items, you can have that visible on your IndieCommerce sites. So as the customers go through checkout, they will see that which ones of those are non-returnable. And this one is in testing, so this should be available sometime next week. And the most important thing that you're working on right now is to make it easy for our members to upload all their sidelines into their IndieCommerce sites. Right now, we have a feature where they can bulk upload it. Like we have stores who have uploaded like hundreds of sidelines into their site just by a couple of clicks. But still, it is a lot of, before they do that, they have to prepare for those files. So that's a lot of time spent, and not all stores have that time. So we are trying to improve that. One is the images. With sidelines, images are really important. With toys and games, images are important. And So we want to make it so the stores can upload the images all in one file. Instead of doing it per item, just upload one file. It has all the images, and our system will accept the file, process it, and attach it to the right product. And the next one is combining the stock upload for books and Sidelines. So stores are uploading the stock for the books, and the Sideline stock is a completely separate process, which is again time consuming. So our plan is to combine the two together. So it'll be one file that includes both books and Sidelines in it. And these two, we are currently working on it, and it's coming out in mid-September. And this one is about displaying the stock. Like when an order comes in and the store is trying to process the order, we want to make sure that the store staff processing the order can actually see whether they have it in stock at the store or whether it's available at Ingram. Right now, since we only get data from Ingram is the only one that's included here. Once we start working with other vendors, we will display all that information too. So this is just to make it easy for the store staff when they are processing the order. And this is, again, it's coming out like in the next 2 weeks in September. And as I said, going into the fall, we plan to finish all this in September and have more detailed webinars in October. And all our updates are being communicated to our members using through our Indie Communication, which is our weekly communication that goes out from Phil Davies, our director. And if stores are not getting these emails, they should sign up for it. And some of the best practices, most of the things that I had on my list that we recommend to stores actually goes in line and it echoes what the others today mentioned. One, the easiest option, if you don't have the Ingram Sidelines enabled, do that, because just easily you can have all those listed on your website. Second, if you have your own set of Sidelines, plan it. Like, it's the same thing as how you plan for your store, plan for your website also. What are the items you want on your website? Do they fall into a category? Like if it's a toy, do you want to separate them by age group? So it's easy for customers to find it. And if you have Sidelines that are eligible for media mail and some that are not, again, plan it accordingly so you can group them together. And most important thing, let your customers know. You can have all the Sidelines, but if customers don't see it on the website, then they won't know that it's available on the website for them to purchase. So let your customers know on your website, create some blocks, menus, whatever it takes to make it available. And also just test it as a customer once you add these things, just to make sure it's working the way you want it to. And I have a few examples of sites that have worked on Sidelines, IndieCommerce sites, and this is just a handful. There are many others that have done it. And some screenshots. So this is Book Culture in New York, Peregrine Book Company in Arizona, 8 Cousins, Wild Rumpus, Read It Again, and Last Bookstore. Just a few examples I took. And one thing to note is I think Wild Rumpus, their Sidelines are mostly the items they got from Ingram. So that is minimal effort, but they still have a lot of Sidelines on their site. So this is a Book Culture site. This goes to saying how much planning can help. It took some time for them to get this page done, but once it's done, it's so easy. It looks fresh, and it's easy for customers to search. Like they tag these products by brand or even started by stock. So customers can see which one is in stock and which one is not. So this is a good example of what planning can help. And this is another page from Peregrine Book Company. Again, they used, once you have the Sidelines, there are different ways you can promote it on your website. So what you saw with Book Culture was one option, and what you're seeing here with Peregrine is another option. And this is, again, a simple thing. Less work. It does the job. It gets the job done. Customers can see what it is, and they can place an order on the website. And here is what we call like a book list. This is, again, a simple thing that stores can do. Once you have, but for all these things, you need to have the Sidelines first created on your website. Once it's done, how you showcase them or list them on your website, you have different options. And this goes to how much planning can help. And this is from, I have to check which store it is, but they did a lot of work. They categorized all the Sidelines that they had. They created a page, and then each of these will link to the detailed page with all those items listed. So this actually helps a lot. This was initially, yes, it was a little bit of work for the store to do, but once it's done, it helps, and it is scalable. And this, one of those links will point to the detailed page where customers can. And again, about promoting it, if you have Sidelines, creating simple blocks, images on your website, the puzzle picture of this can lead to a page that has all the puzzles, the games, activity books. So again, this is about promoting what you have on your website. And if you're doing this for Facebook or social media, it's something similar you can do on your websites too. And this is about store merchandise. Many stores do this. And this is just an example from the last bookstore in California. Again, with the merchandise, if you have different, like for t-shirts, if you have different sizes, different colors, you can list them because it's possible to create sidelines with different attributes and options. If each attribute or option has a different price, that is also possible. So this is again another example. So this is, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what is possible and what's coming. And the goal is to get most of these upgrades done and launched by end of September, and train the stores to use it in October. So we just want them to be prepared if in case there is, if stores have to close or if they have to do only curbside pickup or anything in the fall going into the holiday season, their website is all ready to handle the orders. I think that's, I can stop sharing now.
Great, thank you, Geetha. All right, we are right at 2 o'clock. Before I close it out, do we have any questions that anybody'd like to throw in before we close out? No? Great. So we had a lot of activity in the chat today. So I think this one I might do a little bit different than our last one, or our previous sessions. I'm going to copy all the text from the chat and save that as a file on the website, and then also add that to the description in the YouTube channel so everyone has access to all these links and info moving forward, because there's a lot of good info and questions in there. But yeah, that being said, thank you everybody for attending. I want to thank our participating educators, Cynthia Compton, Meghara Eichhorn-Hicks, Tim Smith, Beth Boynik, Jessica Peterson-White, John Mesjak, Emily Oran Johnson, Sandra Law, Mark Fleeman, Nancy Rohlen, and Geetha Nathan for participating today. And Danny, throwing him in the mix. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Nice to see you all.
Bye.